I'm Raymond. You're watching RPadTV, and I am happy today. Well, one, the Facebook auto intro worked. That's always a 50-50 thing. Two, we're going to have a nerdy discussion about your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And three, and most importantly, I am joined by two of my favorite people. On your top left is the excellent Marcus Beer.
Hola, chimichangas.
On the top right is the spectacular Spider Paul. And as always, I'm the bottom. Wait.
Always. You'll always be at bottom, my friend.
So we have a ton of stuff to discuss about your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, but let's do some quick updates. Marcus, you've had a crazy year, and I'm sure
I've had
people...
a crazy 8 years. I mean, when's it going to end? Every time I think, you know what, the only way is up from here, the universe says, hold my pint, and we're going to keep the lube over here. P. Diddy's taking all the lube, so we're going to screw you raw. Yeah.
Hey, man, you're like one of the most impressive survivors I know in real life, because I'm like, what did he do to God? God gave him a heart attack and cancer, and now he burned down all his shit.
I think I was Hitler in a previous life. That's all I can think of. Hitler or Pol Pot or Stalin or some such shit. Yeah, we're still standing, even though our house, our street, the entire town of Altadena isn't. It burned to the ground in the Eaton fires, and it's 2 months tomorrow, actually. It's been a surreal 2 months. We have stayed in 4 different places in 2 months. Actually, it was 4 different places in 1 month, and we spent 1 month here where we are now, thanks to the generosity of an amazing friend. We're in Corona del Mar at a beautiful beach house. So my view here is a hot tub, an infinity pool, and the ocean. It is pouring down with rain to make me feel even worse, because like, where was that rain 2 months ago? So yeah, all our neighbors, all our friends, 10,000 homes destroyed, about 20,000 people displaced. It's been horrible. And, you know, it's been just as horrible to see first responders being honored for basically doing fuck all, because they did fuck all. My town burnt for 3 days. And the fire trucks stood to one side. And the night that the fire happened, the police, the sheriff's department were not driving around with bullhorns telling people to evacuate. And in fact, had it not been for the incredible bravery of one of our neighbors, another neighbor, the entire family would have burned to death, along with the 20 other people who were lost. So yeah, there's a lot of answers needed. Punishment is needed, because people need to pay both monetarily and with prison time for what they've done. They've destroyed a town, SoCal Edison in particular, which is the power company. I've given them a new motto for their advertising campaign. SoCal Edison, we have yet to meet a town we couldn't burn down, because they burnt the town of Paradise down as well. So yeah, we're in a suit with them, which is obviously fun. So I'm hoping that, you know, we win our suit and then criminal charges can be brought against them, because much like, you know, and I'm not condoning the shooting of a healthcare CEO. I'm not condoning that violence, but I'm sorry for the language, but these fuckers need to go to jail. They need to stop putting the needs of the shareholders over the needs of the customers. And we've told them for years they were supposed to put the power lines underground, and they cut off power to the town that night, and therefore pressure to all the hydrants and everything, and kept one relay tower running with a 250, I think it could be a gigavolt line, I'm not sure, sending power up the hill. In 100-mile-an-hour hurricane winds, something hit it, sparked. We haven't had rain in 11 months. It set the entire mountain on fire. And yeah, our home died at 3:30 a.m. on January the 8th. And I actually got a message from the house, because I had the Apple Home and all these things. And I literally got this message, and I saved the picture. And it says, your home is no longer responding.
Right.
And I was like, and then I knew it was gone. So, but we're out. Our cats were safe. Our dog's safe. We are restarting. We're in, like I said, this beautiful place. so we have to rebuild our entire lives from scratch.
Right.
But
So
we are-
I love our dear friend whose place you're crashing at, and I love
Yeah.
that you're here hanging out with me and Paul.
It's good to see you, and
Yes.
I would publicly like to thank Corsair for making this possible, because they were very nice and they sent me a machine to replace the one that had burnt, because no machine, no Xbox, no PlayStation.
Right.
In fact, PlayStation, bit shitty PlayStation. I mean, how much work have we done over the years, and you can't even send me one? I'm joking. I don't really care. I've got a PC. I've got a gaming rig. I can talk to everybody on PC. That's what I'm happy for. PC Master Race.
Meanwhile, let's check on the guy I've been asking God to take care of for years, Paul Semel.
How the fuck am I supposed to follow that? I got a hangnail. My life is over.
Yeah,
Jesus
you
Christ.
didn't get enough carbs today. Wah, wah.
Don't pick on Paul. Paul is good people. Paul is like one of the nicest people you could ever wish to meet. And
Yeah.
I've got a new, I got a new appreciation for people like you and Paul, in that, you've reached out, you've been there. And Paul, I know you're obviously joking with the, picking on him stuff, but yeah, don't pick on him today. We're good vibes only today, okay?
I usually don't pick on Paul. I'm pretty good about
Don't
that.
pick on him today, because Paul's good people.
Yeah. Now I feel bad that I'm trying to get your dog to run away and live in my house.
My dog's at a beach house right now. My dog is so freaking happy. It's like he came here. He lay out on one of the rugs by the window and looked at us as if to say, "This is the style I am accustomed to. Get working, bitches. I need this." And how are you, Ray?
I am. I'm good. I had a visitor from Idaho over the weekend.
Was it a potato?
No, and he's like, "When are you going to come visit?" I'm like, "Never." Like, I'm not white. I'm not going on no Idaho. I'll be
you would stick out like the proverbial sore thumb, wouldn't you?
Yeah. And then I had dinner last night with one of my friends who is here from Asia to do his taxes and then leave this country. I'm like, take me with you.
Yeah. So let me ask you, Ray, how's your football team doing?
Not so good. Yours is excellent. I think you're going to have a double this year.
Well, we might be on for a treble, but we'll take everything as it comes.
Yeah.
Next up, we've got two games to navigate to get through the next Champions League, and obviously keep our league going in the league. But then Carabao Cup, hopefully that's
right.
the first of 3 trophies, and not the only trophy we got like last season. So
yeah, I think you guys.
I'm sorry, your team, you lost a key player and everything just kind of crumbled. So
yeah, it happens. We'll be back next year. Don't know if we'll be as good, but we'll be better than this year.
You will absolutely storm the championship next year.
Let's see.
Because you won't be in the Premier League, my friend.
I don't think so.
It's a 60 to 100 point deduction. That's what everybody's saying.
Yeah. But getting back to the topic at hand, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Let us kick things off with a bite-sized review. I will go first because I have the screenshot. I had low expectations for your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man and ended up loving it. Mr. Jeff Trammell did a masterful job of creating a unique Spidey world that honors its forerunners. Paul, what is your bite-sized review?
Switching to radio voice. Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is the best Spidey cartoon since the one that gave us the iconic theme song, and the best character-centric superhero cartoon since Batman Beyond.
Wow. Impressive.
And it's character-centric is important in that statement. So
okay. Marcus, round us off.
Didn't like it at first. Persevered. Ended up loving it. It fits well in the Marvel oeuvre.
Okay.
And, yeah. So 2 spider thumbs up.
So I was not tracking this series closely going into it. And I wanted to check with both of you. Marcus, take this one first. What were your expectations going into the series? And how was it different from those expectations?
So I'll be honest with you. I kind of forgot that it was coming.
Mostly the same here. Yeah.
I kind of didn't realize it was on because it's went live when, my house burnt down. So it kind of slipped my memory, and I ended up watching the first episode, I think, like 2 weeks after it aired.
Okay.
And I was just not in the mental frame of mind to enjoy it. And then last week, in fact, I went back and I binged all 10. And that was good. So I had zero anticipation, zero expectation, but I think that was probably just as much my circumstances as anything else. So I'm afraid I can't really give you any other answer than that.
That's a great answer. Paul, out of our nerd circle, you were the one that was most excited for this series. Was it what you were expecting, or was it different?
Yeah, I mean, I was excited for it, but I also had mixed expectations because when it comes to animation, Marvel has never been all that strong. I mean, everything basically between that original Spider-Man cartoon and What If, none of it has really landed for me. Certainly not the way the DC comic stuff has landed in a big way for me.
Not even a lot of people like that.
That's been always been the case, isn't it? DC has always been way stronger on the animated, and then Marvel was better in the movies.
Yes, absolutely. That's been sort of a truism of the whole time. And I include in that, by the way, the X-Men cartoon, which I never got into, even though lots of other people did appreciate it. But yeah, I had been following it all along, just because I follow everything Marvel, MCU, all along. Even the stuff that's Sony that I don't really care about. So.
But was it what you were expecting? Good or in a good or bad way?
It was the quality was what I was hoping for. Okay. It was not. I didn't really know. I knew that it was supposed to be Spider-Man when he's like Spider-Man year one kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't really know much to expect beyond that. Like I didn't know, like, because somebody made a joke recently. They were talking about how it used to be that when you watched a TV show, the superhero person would get their powers in the first episode and then go on and fight crime for the next season.
Right.
And now what happens is you get the story of how everything led up to them getting their powers, and they don't get their powers till the last episode of the first season. Right. And so I didn't know where this was going to go, but I was excited. But once I started watching it, I was like, okay, good. Okay, I'm glad they're getting into this, and this is cool. And
it was very cleverly done.
Very, very much so.
Mobius strip, if you will, of
is that like a landing strip?
No, not a landing strip. A Mobius strip. You know what a Mobius strip is?
Yes, I know.
It's obviously infinite and just good, figure eight. But that's what this is.
Yeah.
The end is the beginning, and the beginning is the end.
Yeah.
Of the season, and I thought that was very well done. And I loved X-Men. I really loved the X-Men reboot. Iconic theme tune, great characters. It was spot on. What we've discussed, What If, where I think that's just been up and down like a yo-yo.
Yeah.
But this one, I mean, obviously they started off with that iconic 60s Spider-Man theme remixed. And I gotta say, it's banging.
Yeah.
It's yeet, yeet, Riz, or whatever it is the young people say.
They say both of those things.
Apparently, it's got swag.
Yes. Actually, I don't know if the kids say that anymore. Is swag in or out? No. It's
good. Yeah. It's a really good theme tune. And I do love that. It's actually so good that I don't hit skip intro.
Yeah.
I cannot give it higher praise than that. So I think that this one, if you look at the last three series, I mean, I think it's up there with X-Men and above 90% of What If.
I feel similarly, but to be completely honest, I was not looking forward to this show. One reason is ignorance. I just saw flashes of the art, and I thought, for some reason, they were going for a kiddie vibe, which is absolutely not the case. So I was definitely.
You don't remember the trailer where he hits somebody in the face with a brick?
Yes.
So that's when I knew it wasn't going to be a kiddie Spider-Man.
And the other thing is, I saw this headline with the lead actor and I won't say his name because I still think he's kind of a knob, but he said my biggest fear was that it was going to be annoying and woke, which immediately turned me off because he used woke like how assholes use it, as if there's something wrong with, you know, having knowledge and empathy.
Not being a dickhead.
Yeah, pretty much. So that turned me off into the series. But when I got into it, I immediately loved everything about it. I loved it more than X-Men 97, which I think, to me, it's definitely faithful to the X-Men animated series, but it's still just like a dumber version of the comics to me. Whereas this is its own thing, and Jeff Trammell did really impressive job with it. Let's stick on that positive tip, Paul Semel, and tell me your favorite aspect of your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man.
Well, I would say there's two. One was how it interacted and yet didn't interact with the MCU canon. Like how, like, you'd have him like watching the news and they would be talking about the fight in the German airport, and he's like, oh man, like I liked how they hit a lot of that stuff, or like when Norman Osborn shows up at his house and it mirrors the time that Tony Stark showed up at his house. I thought that a lot of that stuff was really fun and clever.
Yeah.
One of the other things that I liked was sort of Peter's role in school, because if you go back to like the original comics in the 60s, like he's like the nerd, he gets picked on, he's like the outcast. When you look at the MCU, you know, the Tom Holland version, he's not that. He's not like picked on, but he's also not popular, even though he's a really good looking guy. Like he has his friend, like he's friends with Ned, and it seems like that's it. And like, you know, so, but he doesn't seem to be like hated or disliked by anybody. It's just like they're like, oh, that's like Peter, he's over there.
Right. But Flash still picks on him. So
yeah, I mean Flash picks on like but Flash is like insecure, so he picks on like everybody. But like Flash doesn't go out of his way to pick on him the way that Flash Thompson does in like the original comics or the other movies.
Right.
But in this one, it's almost like people like Peter. Like he has like his friends, but like nobody's like picking on him. Nobody's like, you know.
Right, but I think the big difference was instead of the jock picking on him in this school that he ended up with, the jock wanted to be his friend. So I think that opened.
Yes, and that's something I very much picked up on, was like, because when that guy Lonnie first showed up, you're like, oh, okay, I guess he's going to be like the Flash Thompson guy, the jock that picks on him. And A, first of all, like they made him really smart too, and B, he loves Peter. Like he's like Peter's like the cool, like him and Peter are like thick as thieves in the beginning of the show, and that to me was very different because I feel like the role of geeks in our culture has really changed.
Carlos agrees with you.
Yeah, thank you, Carlos. Yeah, like when I was a kid, like I was like one of like two people that watched Doctor Who. Like nobody read comics and nobody did any of this stuff. And now geek culture is so huge that like the geeks, well, some of them gotten really arrogant about it, but like geeks aren't like picked on just for being geeks anymore. And I kind of dug that about the show.
I think they still are. I mean, let's face it, until America in particular loses this bizarre homoerotic fascination with putting kids into sports and getting them all buff and watching all these boys bouncing balls around and shit, and actually gets away from that and actually focuses more on academia. We're always going to have that issue, and I do agree with you in a way, though. I mean, this is a refreshing universe that this Peter's in. It may not be woke and shit, because it doesn't have to be woke and shit. It actually, as a different universe from MCU canon and from whatever, as a different timeline, it really works because it actually shows a lot more positivity, and it is colorblind.
Well, exactly. Yeah, it is woke and shit in the true meaning of the word. I mean, like, you have Norman Osborn and his son are black. His best friend is Asian and I think gay.
My point is, in that universe, the word woke wouldn't exist.
I
Right.
see what you're saying.
Because people are fucking decent. They don't go judge by color and
Right.
and gender and all these other things. I mean, it's actually an idealized universe. There's still problems. There's still violence. There's still gangs, as we see. But honestly, it's a fucking universe I'd love to live in.
Just for some diversity, Johan chimed in to say that he was both a nerd and a bully in school.
Oh, good.
Yes, he was a American football player in school. He was that big, but he also likes all our nerd stuff.
I was never bullied for Doctor Who and Star Wars and all this.
He also grew up in England. So
I grew up
Wales.
in Wales.
Yeah.
But I didn't play
bad.
rugby at the as a kid, and or soccer or anything like that. I wasn't into that sort of stuff, and so I didn't really conform to, especially when growing up in a small rural town. But yeah, I mean, it was me. Some of my oldest friends I'm still friends with now, and we loved sci-fi and we loved comic books and really, hip hop, all that sort of stuff. But we never got picked on for it, which is, we got picked on for other shit. But
yeah, comics were. I've been reading comics since grade school, and it was never cool the way it's somewhat accepted. I don't know if it's quite cool, but it's definitely like a more normal thing now.
I would almost draw a distinction between being a nerd and being a geek. That I think you get picked on. You might get picked on now by the stupid kids for being really smart and doing well in school, but you don't get picked on if you show up wearing a Captain America t-shirt the way you would have.
Right. I would say, like, the ranks of geekdom change. Like now Star Wars and Spider-Man are mainstream. So now we pick on the Warhammer kids. And
remember, this is three grown-ass men who haven't been anywhere near a school in the last 30 to 40 years. So
and childless also.
All childless. So at the end of the day, we don't know what the shit we're talking about because we don't experience it, and we don't have access to children. We don't have children in our lives. I mean, my nephews and niece are all in Wales. So it's I suppose we're idealizing again, because it would be nice.
Probably, yeah,
it would be nice, but maybe in Idaho, not so much.
So, Marcus, what was your favorite outstanding aspect of the show for you? Was it the world, as you were saying?
Honestly, I like the world, but I like the way they tweak the characters and the connections. I mean, Lonnie didn't really put two and two together. I thought Lonnie was going to become a Green Goblin, or a Hobgoblin, whatever. But
Tombstone.
And then when he joined the gang, and I'm like, hang on, he's gonna be fucking Tombstone.
Yeah,
because Lonnie in the books is Tombstone.
Yes.
But it's a older white guy. But again, they tweaked that.
He's actually an African American albino in the comics.
Okay.
Yeah,
I said corrected. But the fact that there was, I mean, the people, the person who sort of like picked on Peter the most is fucking Amadeus Cho. And Amadeus Cho becomes, he becomes a smart Hulk at some point in another universe.
The totally awesome Hulk.
Away a lot of the extraneous fluff and streamlined, I think, the Peter experience, and it did it in a way that we can have. I could see that being plugged into the Spider-Verse with Miles Morales as a version that he would visit, and it wouldn't be out of place. And so I thought the world was great. I thought the characterizations were great. We didn't get to see much of May until perhaps the very end, but there were some twists and turns.
Who looks a lot like what I would think an older Mary Jane would look like, which says all kinds of weird things about Peter, if that's his type.
There's no Mary Jane.
Well, not yet. We'll see about.
I mean, we've not seen an MJ at all, or even an MJ-esque character, or a Gwen Stacy. And I mean, it's great. We don't necessarily need those characters because they've brought in new characters. Lonnie's girlfriend and Peter's friend. And
I mean, it's because of the whole shifting school thing. He didn't meet those people, but I suspect I definitely think we'll see a Gwen, a version of Gwen later. And guys, there will be spoilers, by the way. You know this. When he has that private dinner with Norman Osborn, the painting in the back is actually the Brooklyn Bridge. I'm like, foreshadowing. I'm going to kill your girlfriend later. Like, so. But yeah, I absolutely love the world aspect, as you said. But the thing that blew me away was how much content there is from all the decades of Spider-Man's history. Everything from the 60s comics, the 60s cartoon. Paul, you guys both mentioned the theme song. It had influences from the Sam Raimi movies. Obviously, the Tom Holland movies are the big ones. A lot of influences there. But even for comic books as recent as 2019, it has all these characters. I love that it borrows from 6 decades of Spider-Man content and creates its own unique world that really does stand on its own impressively.
And it wasn't afraid to bring in the other heroes for cameos.
Yes.
But the way it was handled was very well. I mean, it was very good. And, we see Iron Man, but he's there and he's gone.
Right.
He turns up to take, to help, take off Octavius down. And I like this version of Octavius too.
Yeah.
I mean, for somebody who, such an arrogant character, to have him doing what, I think, is it the Tinkerer? He was, that was that a DC character, the Tinkerer, the one who makes the superpowered suits and stuff for the bad guys. No, I think he's Marvel. But to have somebody of that ego surviving by making superpowered upgrade suits for people he wouldn't want to mix with, he views himself way above. I thought that was a great touch. The way they handled Stephen Strange, that Stephen Strange, he was old school comic book Stephen Strange.
Right. That's again,
and that was brilliant.
I want to talk about that more when we talk about the art style, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of nods to.
Well, you said about seeing May looking kind of Mary Jane-esque, but it did have that sort of 1960s sort of
absolutely
overly face, if you will. There was a lot to be said for this. It took some big gambles, but they didn't feel like big gambles because everything else made sense. Right. Because they put this different spin on. All right, so we've remade the shot for shot the scene where he meets Tony, but now he's meeting Norman Osborn.
Right.
And like you said about they reference the Battle of New York, and then they reference Civil War and that, and Peter's not in that, and Peter's spider suit. And the way they had the different versions of the spider suit, especially the last but one before, the white and black one.
Right.
It almost felt like I was playing Spider-Man on the PS5, and I was seeing all these other suits come out, and that again, a great touch.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention that they actually did borrow content from the excellent Insomniac games as well. So I'm just impressed. Mm-hmm. That they paid homage to all these different Spider-Man things and still made their own world. Personally, I do not have any major complaints about the show. Anything that bothered me was really small, and for me not mentioning, but Paul, you wanted to get into some criticism you had.
I mean, it certainly didn't ruin the show in any way, but I found where Lonnie's story went to be less than the sort of least interesting aspect.
Oh.
I feel like we've seen this story before of like a kid who joins a gang and to protect his younger brother, and then he becomes a big part of the gang. And I don't know, I kind of didn't like that, largely because when you really got to know Lonnie and you saw him with Peter, that to me was a really interesting friendship, and I wanted them to take that somewhere. Especially because there's a whole thing in the beginning about Peter being into Lonnie's girlfriend, Pearl.
Right.
And they never really went anywhere with that. Like, it was kind of like, he's like, oh, I'm in love with Pearl. And then he's like, yeah, all right, whatever. Now
no, I got it. Yeah. But then it almost seemed like both Peter. Peter and Nico were interested in Pearl.
But I mean, the
Yeah.
beautiful thing about that is life got in the way of
Right.
He did
what,
get powers.
I'm in love
Yeah.
with this girl, now I'm Spider-Man, now I'm hanging out with Nico.
Yeah.
And I'm dealing with either suit and Norman Osborn all of a sudden, right off the bat. I mean, that was a bold gamble. Norman Osborn knows who Spider-Man is from the get-go.
Yeah.
And
Well, he
it doesn't
was
look
also
like
in,
Norman Osborn is going to be Green Goblin, even though we saw the glider.
we'll see.
Well, you know what happened at the end.
I think it was stupid that he was even changing in the stairwell. I'm like, dude, there's a thing called
He's a
security cameras,
kid.
man.
He's a kid. He wasn't thinking.
When
And
I was
think
his
it
age,
was-
I was shoplifting all the
regular.
time, and I was aware of the cameras. No.
But they covered it off in that it wasn't a regular security
Yeah.
camera. It's, it just goes to show the sort of person Norman is, in that he has all these cameras that are really tiny and people don't know about.
It's the rich person
he's kinda
camera.
creepy. It's probably one in the ladies' room as well.
Marcus,
Is he Chuck Berry now?
did you have any major complaints about the show?
Honestly, I have one. There's one really big one for me. Only 10 episodes, really. I could have gone for 15. I actually think that Marvel underbet on this one, and I think they could have. I mean, and I normally complain about Marvel series going too long, and I think when we talked about Daredevil, Iron Fist, the Defenders, etc. Punisher, they were 8 to 10 episode arcs that could have been done in 6. But this one seemed to have so much going for it that I really could have done another 5 episodes very easily just to see Peter's evolution and have him perhaps interact with some others. So yeah, I was, like I said, I'd forgotten about it, but I remember seeing the trailer and I remember seeing, Spider-Man hitting somebody with a brick, and I'm like, okay, this isn't your granddad Spider-Man. And for a Disney Plus show to have that was kind of bold. I mean, it wasn't like he's been walking around, beating the shit out of everybody. Daredevil. He's not Daredevil. We know that.
Right. Although things did get way more violent than I was expecting. The Scorpion really beats the shit out of him. I did not.
We saw Daredevil.
Yeah.
That was another cameo that was very well handled. Boom. It didn't take anything away, but yes, he had the living crap kicked out of him by Scorpion.
And then he had PTSD in the next episode. I loved how they,
And I mean, and that goes back to, again, why would he think about Pearl when he's got all this other stuff? I mean,
Paul.
He's maybe a teenage boy. But no, I think Paul made a valid point that
he did.
I love that, the romance or the crush was touched on, and then it was kind of pushed to one side. Because we've had that version of Spider-Man 1,001 times where he's mooning over MJ, Gwen Stacy, whoever.
Right.
And this time there was no mooning. There was a little, couple of glances and yearning at the beginning, but then we got to the action, and the action was so well paced, and it didn't interrupt the, feel out of context, and the story was good, and especially because I binged 8 episodes in a row, and it just felt so. It sucked me in, and everything connected.
Yeah,
and I would happily rewatch that if Disney Plus strung everything together and put it out as one long movie length show. And I wish they would do that, so I don't have to keep on skipping, next episode and skipping all that crap.
Question for Paul, and if Paul doesn't know the answer, Carlos, can you fact check this? Have any of the Feige animated series been longer than 10 episodes? I don't think What If has.
No,
not per season. No.
Right.
Yeah.
No, but most of the TV, I don't think most of the TV shows have been, or like the live action shows have been.
Yeah,
that's right.
I mean, and even Daredevil, like they said, Daredevil is 17, but they've already split that in 2, and the other, like half of them are running next year.
And then Carlos has some news, which I think is good news. Unfortunately, Marcus will have to hold on for a few more years. They have said this is going 3 seasons. Yes, they renewed it. When they did the renewal, they gave Jeff 2 more seasons, which I'm thrilled about. And hopefully it will be done faster, because I think they started working on this in like 2021 or something. But then stuff happens. There was a pandemic and all that stuff.
Writer's strike.
Yeah, writer's strike. Yeah.
Yeah.
Were the voice actors in the actors strike as well? I think they were. Right?
It would have been, yeah.
Yeah. So it was delayed for several reasons. This is an aspect of the show that really impressed me, and I wanted to see how both of you felt it. But there was just so much content from like 60 years of comics and movies and cartoons and TV shows. Well, maybe not the Nicholas Hammond 70s TV show.
Which is vastly underrated, especially the one where he's in Hong Kong.
Yes, the Deadly Dust. I love Spider-Man and the Deadly Dust. Yeah. But how did you guys feel they integrated all of that? Paul, go ahead.
I thought they did a good job. When you originally posed the question to us via email, though, you said something about having it appeal to a broad audience.
Yes.
And I think that if they wanted to, like, they left out some major characters that people really associate with Spider-Man, specifically Green Goblin and Dr. Octopus. I mean, he was there, but he wasn't Doc Ock.
Right.
And so but I don't think anybody would have minded. I don't think anybody really minded that, because I think, like we were saying, like Spider-Man's the perception of Spider-Man now is very different than it was, say, 10 years ago. And a lot of the minor characters they've sort of brought up. I mean,
I think you're thinking about it differently than what I meant. What I meant by broad audience is that there is something for everyone, no matter which version of Spider-Man you consider your Spider-Man.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think so. I think they did a good job with that, because like you said, there's a lot of the different characters are in it, and they presented them in interesting ways. I think this is also like a really good sort of introduction to Spider-Man, because there's going to be kids out there that this will be their introduction to Spidey.
I was actually thinking about something you often say about Star Wars, and how there's different types of Star Wars fans. Like for us, the original trilogy is Star Wars. There's a generation where, the prequels, that's Star Wars for them. And another generation where like Clone Wars and Rebels are Star Wars. So I love that we're at a point with Spider-Man where, like for me, and I think for both of you, Spider-Man is the comics version of Spider-Man. What's interesting about the writer and showrunner of this show is that for him, he said his biggest influence was the 90s cartoon, which I never would have guessed, but also think is very cool that Spider-Man is different things to different fans, which is awesome. Marcus, how did you feel about the integration and the hodgepodge of Spidey things in this show?
There's a term I like to use called fan wankery. And I use it when it goes from just having a nod or a nod and a wink and a little, here's your cameo, here's this. Oh, you saw that in the background. The most random aspect of it is, you remember the Street Fighter movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme. And,
Kylie Minogue.
But Bison controls his floating thing with the arcade system from Street Fighter Arcade. But I thought this handled it very, very well. And this has probably got more fan wankery per square acre than most shows, to be honest with you, because it does touch on a lot of different things. And as you said, it pulls from different universes. There's OG Spider-Man, there's Tom Holland, there's all these different versions. But it does it so well because
it's tastefully done. Yeah.
It's nuanced and it's respectable and it's not overt.
Yes.
I thought it was very, very well written. And look, I remember watching the first episode, and I was not in the best place mentally. And I'm like, I had the thought, it's like, oh, all of his friends are, not comic book canon with regards to, their ethnicity and stuff. I'm like, why is that? And then I put that down more to where my head was at the time. in that I just lost my house. I was absolutely exhausted. And I turned the show on expecting perhaps more of the same of what I was used to. But now, after, a couple of weeks of rest and some, trying to get some sort of normalcy, that's when I went back to it. And the last 8 episodes I binged were an absolute delight. And I love the bold character choices they made. And I love the way they're taking Norman Osborn. And that season 2 will be what the fuck? And I loved that at the very end of the episode, of the final episode, we saw the fucking Watcher.
Yes.
I hope the Watcher was watching it to say, hang on, what if sucked? Why didn't we do it this way? But I loved that was in there. And I loved their take on the alien symbiotes. In that it wasn't, we're looking at Carnage, and we're looking at, it wasn't the Tom Hardy movie versions or the comic book canon versions of what we perceive to be Venom. It was some blobby octopus mixed with the Audrey 2 from Little Shop of Horrors thing with multiple heads. But
that's actually from a game as well. That like octopi version of it.
I thought it was great, very creative.
Yeah,
and I thought they handled it very, very well. I mean, kudos to the entire writers' room on that one.
Yeah.
It's very rare that I can't actually think of a bad thing to say other than I wanted more. And I mean, it's funny that we're in America where every show has to have 22 seasons, everything on mainstream TV, and yet the advent of streaming, we're now having quality over quantity. We're having 10 shows, 8 shows, 6 shows, which is what I'm used to in the UK, except for the 3 or 4 main soap operas, which are 2-3 episodes a week, 52 weeks a year. And original Doctor Who, which was every Saturday throughout the year, maybe a break in the summer. But most of these sort of shows in the UK are 6 to 8 episodes. Some go to 12, and that means repeats are actually, or used to be, few and far between. So there was more of this original content spun out, and I thought that. I got no quibbles with any aspect, any direction that they took. I thought it was especially in these current fractured times, I thought it was a beautifully put together Spider-Man universe.
Absolutely. Another thing on your list of things to love, I love that even though they made Norman Osborn African-American, they kept that John Romita hair where he looks like the guy from Fine Young Cannibals. It's like, she drives me crazy. That.
Again, that was great. And, making Harry an influencer.
Genius.
But then watching it all crash.
Yeah.
For Harry, and just, it goes to show how fickle that sort of fame is. 1 minute you've got 1.3 million followers, you're on top of the world, and everybody wants to take a picture of you, driving your car, and the next thing you know, you're the meme.
Right.
I thought that was really well put together too, and is a damning indictment on our current society.
So I wanted to talk really quickly about the art style of the show. I have a feeling that both of you enjoyed it. I think it's because we grew up with comics that style. Like, more than any animated series in the last 20 years, this really looked like a moving comic book for the comics that I was used to. But I also love that they did a lot of Steve Ditko homages, which he often gets overlooked for being a co-creator of Spider-Man. Stan Lee did create so many awesome characters, but Spidey is one that he co-created with Steve Ditko. So they had his version of Spidey. They gave him those circular giant glasses that he had in those Spidey books. His version, he created Doctor Strange as well, and he gave him those stupid cheetah skinned gloves for whatever reason. Had those weird patterns on them.
The pencil mustache.
The pencil mustache.
I mean, it's an Errol Flynn mustache, isn't it?
Yeah. And he was the guy.
Errol Flynn is young people.
He was the guy that turned Iron Man into multicolor. He didn't create the original design, but he was the first artist to make him the red and gold that most of us associate with Iron Man today. Paul, what did you think of the art direction in the series?
It took probably till like the end of the first episode before I kind of was on board. It is very different. Like you said, it is different from it's very different from what they've done in obviously X-Men 97, but also very different from what they were doing in What If, which is where I thought it was before they showed anything. That's what I thought they were going to do, is they were going to have all the animation look like What If. But by the end of the first episode, I was like, okay, this is cool. Like, and one thing I liked about it is you talked about it being so much connected to the comics, but it never did it in like a tricky way.
Yeah.
Like if you go back and watch that Ang Lee Hulk movie, like he tried to do that as well, and it just felt very gimmicky in that movie, and it never really felt all that gimmicky in this because they didn't do it that much. They did it just enough, and where it worked, and other times they were like, okay, we don't have to do that.
Marcus, your thoughts on the art direction?
Well, I thought it was great. I mean, again, as somebody who started reading Spider-Man in the sort of like late 70s, whenever I could find a comic in the local newsagents, and then through the heyday of the 80s for me, to see these, to see that, I mean, especially as somebody who has started revisiting the old classics, the Silver Age books through the Marvel Unlimited app, which is a great purchase, by the way. Not that I want to shill for the mouse, but Marvel Unlimited is actually fantastic, especially when your entire comic book collection's burnt to the ground. But yeah, the art style was great. I kind of liked that it looked like a comic book, and it was significantly different, as Paul said, to the previous outputs from Marvel Animation, and then also significantly different into the Spider-Verse, which I know is Sony.
Yes.
But when we do see Miles Morales going through the different universes and stuff, yes, they did have these funny little things, and it kind of made it a lot harsher. But this felt natural. This world felt natural. The characters worked. The voices were spot on.
Right.
And I thought it was absolutely, absolutely the right way to go. And I think, again, for me, as somebody who's slightly older, there was a lot that was comforting about it.
You're not older than Paul. Nobody is. No, just kidding.
I didn't say older than you.
I know.
As somebody who is older. I mean,
hey. Jesus is older than me.
Jesus.
By a week.
Yeah,
so Carlos,
62.
It might be a sign of our respective ages, because Carlos is a little bit younger than us, and he did not like the art right away. He said, I was in Paul's camp. I needed to get my eyes used to this animation too. I loved it in the end. The way the camera would pan or cut felt like following panels in a comic, and at times you would see the frames of a panel. Yes, like when they would have mobile phone conversations, they would split them into comics panels. I thought that was very, very clever, and I really enjoyed that.
It was elegantly done.
Yes. Let us take a quick little break because, guys, I wanted to tell you that RPadTV is proud to be partnering with Proton. Proton makes some of the best products in the internet if you care about your privacy. I personally use Proton Mail and Proton VPN as a paid subscriber, and you can get a discount of up to 64% off a Proton VPN subscription if you use the link go.getproton.me/sh10j. There is a direct link in the Facebook and YouTube descriptions. But why should you use Proton? If you care about your privacy, you want to safeguard your identity, you want to block some malware, block some pesky ads and trackers. And this is backed by Swiss privacy laws. And as you guys know, the Swiss are awesome at things like Alps, cheese with holes in them, and chocolate. I mean, Switzerland is so awesome that Tina Turner left the US and renounced her citizenship and became a Swiss citizen in
Put that free
2013.
link up again. I need to type it in.
Yes, it is go.getproton.me/sh, the number 1 OJ, as in OJ Simpson. Wait, no. Shouldn't have said that. Now back to our show, even though I'm still here and I didn't really go anywhere. And
Swiss chocolate.
Carlos's cousin Jesus is also not older than Paul. Let's talk about.
You have to email me that link, my friend. If it wouldn't come up on my phone, I'd probably type that in wrong.
All good. I am happy to. Marcus, what did you think of the voice acting in Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, and did anyone stand out for you?
I thought it was pretty stellar across the board. Everybody was different. It was interesting that Norman was so different to the Norman we expect.
Yeah.
But his voice worked so well. And then you switch to somebody like Doc Ock, who sounded exactly like you'd think he would. Yeah, I thought
You know who that is, right? Who those people? The people that voiced Doc Ock and Norman?
Coleman Domingo is Norman.
Right.
Sorry?
And
Coleman Domingo. Oscar.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my apologies, Coleman Domingo. All right, yeah, Coleman Domingo, Oscar nominated.
Yes.
and Hugh Dancy is and Doc Ock was Hugh Dancy, who people know from tons of different stuff, including Law and Order.
So funny aside, Jeff Trammell, when they were looking for actors, people like suggested Coleman Domingo, and he's like, we're not getting fucking Coleman Domingo. Are you crazy? And same thing with Hugh Dancy. He's like, no way we're getting him. It's like, oh, he's signed. Okay.
No, it was top quality. I thought it was top quality voice acting. And because it tied into the art style, tied into the universe, I wasn't expecting any of them to sound like the MCU versions or the Sony versions. I wasn't expecting Norman Osborn to sound like Willem Dafoe. I wasn't expecting Doc Ock to sound like he was Doc Ock in Spider-Man 2. Help me out here.
Oh, from Indiana Jones.
Well, he's Alfred Molina. Thank you. I mean, he was obviously, he was a very successful TV actor before he started doing features. But yeah, I didn't have these expectations, and it was good. And I think it worked better than perhaps the voices in What If, because in What If, it was a hodgepodge. It was Haley Atwell and a couple of others, but then not Robert Downey Jr., not Chris Evans. And that just felt off. And it was certainly nowhere near as bad as the Avengers game voice actors who tried manfully or womanfully. But at the end of the day, it was absolutely awful. Sorry, excuse me.
Carlos says Coleman Domingo did a great job as Norman. I would love to see if we can get a version of him in Secret Wars. Yeah, for me, he was the one that impressed me the most. I thought the cast was strong in general.
Yeah.
From top to bottom, even though the lead uses woke like a moron. So,
I had forgotten about that.
Carlos also adds, Charlie Cox was the only MCU actor to lend his voice to this show. I wonder if that's on purpose or just because he's available.
See, to me, I thought that was when Marcus was talking about how in What If you had a mix. When we got Charlie Cox as Daredevil, I was like, oh, that's weird.
I thought it was intentional just because Born Again and the releases for Born Again and Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man are together.
Yeah, I guess, but I don't know. It's still, to me, it felt a bit weird.
And did you enjoy the cast for the most part, Paul?
I did. I thought the guy who played Spider-Man was really, really good. Nico was really good. Pearl, all of them. The only one that threw me was Lonnie at first. Sounds a lot like Michael B. Jordan.
Okay.
And I was like, wait, did they get Michael B. Jordan for this? Which wouldn't have surprised me because he's done cartoons in the past. And I was like, that's weird. And then I was like, oh no, it's that guy. It sounds like Michael B. Jordan. Like there's a couple of voice actors that sound like other people. Like there's one guy who very famously sounds like Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
To the point where on like Family Guy, they once had a thing where he did like his whole riff about how they couldn't afford Kristen Bell, so they got the guy that sounds like Morgan Freeman, but he's not Morgan Freeman, and he works for scale.
Didn't they? It's
So-
not the same guy they used in South Park, the Fractured But Whole.
I think so, yes. I
Yeah.
think he's that guy. He's also done like Robot Chicken as Morgan Freeman. Like his job is
Right.
basically to voice Morgan Freeman.
It reminds
But-
me of that guy when we were doing the Scarface game that we needed somebody to sound like Al Pacino because Al Pacino couldn't do that voice anymore. And we ended up getting Al Pacino's old driver.
Huh.
And he voiced Tony Montana in
Yeah.
Scarface, The World Is Yours. A vastly underrated game, I think. Balls and meters are the way to go.
So
Well,
I don't
the-
want to pick on you, Dancy, because I thought he did a great job, but for some reason, the way that Otto Octavius was drawn, for some reason in my head, I kept hearing like Bowen Yang's voice in my head, which would have made the character hilarious. So, I don't
Oh,
know.
That would have
no.
been fun.
I think that was
No
just
offense.
me.
I like Bowen Yang in a number of things. I think he can be an exceptionally funny individual. But no, not as Otto Octavius. I think they should save him as to be Mr. Negative.
Oh, that could be cool. Marcus, why don't you kick off this question? You know, of course, Spider-Man is the focus, but did you have a favorite character among the supporting cast? Be it good or bad
Let me
character.
just say that Marcus Beer is brought to you by Bundaberg Diet.
Oh, nice.
I'm coming down with a cold on top of everything else, so the ginger beer works very well for my throat. Yes. Who was my favorite? I gotta say Lonnie.
Okay.
I thought Lonnie was so good. And the way they handled it, as you know, Paul brought up, I mean, it was a different take. We thought he was going to be the Flash character, but he wasn't. And he was smart and kind and decent and a good older brother who then takes one for his younger brother.
Right.
And now he's going to become Tombstone. And as Paul said, he and Peter love each other. They're best friends. And that is going to come to a head. I mean, the scene when they are fighting towards the end of the series, and they really do kick some ass, especially when they kick the shit out of Scorpion, was great. And you just know that is going to be in season 2. They're going to get torn apart. And
Yeah.
it's going to be heart-wrenching because I think they'll probably build up this relationship with them, and that might even be one of the major arcs in season 2, and then to tear them apart and have them go their own separate ways. I think it's going to be brutal and heartbreaking. So yeah, Lonnie, all day.
Paul, how about you?
Well, as I said, I liked Lonnie in the beginning when you started to get to know him, but thought that his story made him less interesting as it went along. For me, I really liked Nico.
Yeah.
I thought she was an interesting character, and I especially liked her when she was interacting with people other than Peter.
Right.
Like there's a whole episode where she's hanging out with Harry. Like I thought that whole section, that episode was really, really fun. And I really liked the part when she was hanging out with Pearl. Like that part of that episode was really, really good. So I thought her like interactions with other people made her a very strong and interesting character.
Yeah, I
Nico is
wasn't
Ned,
sure.
isn't she is Ned.
Essentially, I mean,
Yeah.
although
Kinda.
Ned
Well,
is
you think
Ned
about it,
likes
you know.
is hetero though. I think that's maybe one
Well, they
difference.
both like girls, so what? But no, the thing I liked about Nico, and Paul summed it up there again. You're on fire tonight, Paul. By the way. Oh, sorry, no, too soon. You're smoking. No, I can't do that. You're making great observations. There you go.
There you go.
So yeah, the thing that was awesome with Nico is that she suffered some of the same things that Ned has suffered with Spider-Man, where it's like he didn't, he bailed on a party,
Right.
leaving her there, or didn't turn up, and yeah, the interactions with Pearl, You see that in some of the the interactions in the Tom Holland series, Ned and MJ. So I think it was a great spin on it, and I think she worked. And obviously, what character is she with her mystical amulet?
Well, she's from, I mean, for people that don't know Nico Minoru, she's from a comic book called The Runaways, which is one of my all-time
I never
favorite.
watched The Runaways or read The Runaways.
Ooh,
I know it was a Hulu show.
Yeah, you can skip the show, but I highly recommend reading the comics. Like, it's
the early ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Nico Minoru is from a family of magic users, so she is a good witch, or is she a bad witch? But yeah, I love what they did with Nico, and I was scared because I love that character from the comics. One who I'm lukewarm about, but for ethnic reasons, I was happy that they had Pearl Pangan in this. She is the tall woman that is taller than Peter. She is a Filipino character, which is very rare in comics. In the comics, she is also a swimmer like Pearl is, but she is a marine biologist who gets bitten by a radioactive wave and becomes a hero named Wave, who is basically like Aquaman. She can do things with water and swim real fast and has super strength and speed. But yeah, it was cool to have a Filipino character in a superhero show. So I was very stoked about that. But
as you should be. I mean, this representation thing it's important that people have these iconic characters, or hopefully in Pearl's case, new iconic characters that she will, be exposed to this whole audience. But people should be able to see people who look like them on screen doing good things, being heroes. It's in the UK growing up, it irked the shit out of me that 90% of all TV was fucking English, and it was London, Liverpool, or Manchester, sometimes Birmingham, and it was all white people. And even if you would, that remaining 10%, you would get probably about 4% Irish, 4% Scottish, and 2% Welsh. And it's changed now. It has changed, which is good. But yeah, I'm glad you're getting to see these sort of people. I mean, I would love to, I've said this before, I'd love to see a Welsh Doctor Who. Because, or a Welsh, we had one Welsh James Bond in Tim Dalton, who kind of got hosed. But yeah, this representation. And, Paul should see people who look like him too, in comic books and everything. I mean,
middle-aged white guys with dad bods. Yeah, I've seen enough of that on television.
There is a space for you and me with our gray beards and our dad bods and stuff like that. I think we need to be represented. So
I would cast Paul as Mole Man. I think you would do a fine job.
I'm a mole man.
Oh, that was a horrible film, wasn't it? With C. Thomas Howell.
My brother and I loved that movie as kids.
Yeah.
Would not fly.
I was aping The Simpsons because there's Bart Simpson saying something about Mole Man once because of Hans
Mole Man took me to Soul Man, which is a great song. Right. But there's a movie
with James Earl Jones.
I mean, it's C. Thomas Howell in the lead, and he basically is somebody who doesn't get into college, and so he takes a lot of tanning pills to essentially give him brown face and brown curly hair so he can actually take an African-American scholarship to get into school. So this is prime 80s.
Yep.
It didn't work well back then. It was offensive as fuck, to be honest with you. But yeah, I mean, C. Thomas Howell's work has improved since, but yeah, the studio system in the 80s was pretty rancid. But yeah, don't check it out.
So, Marcus, you mentioned the Watcher's appearance before. What did you make of it? What does it mean? And what do you want from it?
I don't know. I mean, look, it was fun to see it because it did tie in to obviously What If, and it reinforced that whole other timeline universe that we've seen so many times. do we see? I mean, it'll be interesting to see where perhaps X-Men tie into this, or do we? Will we see these other characters? Will this Spider-Man be pulled into something into the Spider-Verse? I was more excited with the potential of Norman Osborn becoming Venom. Because that's the way I think they're pushing it. It may be that Harry becomes Green Goblin, because obviously we saw the Goblin glider and it rescued Spider-Man after he was almost killed by Scorpion. But that one little blob of black goo is right there with Norman. And that could be a really interesting way to go. Could you imagine Norman Osborn as Venom? And I'm not talking, and I hope they don't make it Harry doesn't want to be a young person. I think it would be phenomenally, just a really phenomenal twist to see him with that level of power, a Venom Goblin, if you will. Who knows? So that to me was probably the most exciting aspect of the finale. The Watcher, it was more like a calling card to say, look, this isn't your regular Spider-Man.
Hold the Venom thoughts, because we still can address that a bit later. But Paul, any thoughts on the Watcher?
I thought it was just a little thing to kind of say, like Marcus said, this is a different Spider-Man and a different version of the universe, and obviously it's probably a neighboring reality because there's so much. It's so close as opposed to the one where everybody's made out of paint. It did make me wonder if maybe they're going to do something with him, maybe not in Marvel Zombies, but maybe something they've got planned for after Marvel Zombies. Like maybe they're thinking they're going to go back and do after the 3 seasons of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man and Marvel Zombies and other things they've got planned. Maybe they're going to go back and do more What If, at which point they bring him into that. Or maybe they're thinking they're going to bring him into the Spider-Verse stuff, and then somehow the Watcher is going to figure into that as well. Or it could just be they just did it because it was fun. I mean, not everything has to mean something.
I mean, I think it does, because this is still Phase 5, which is the multiverse saga. So I think a Watcher will tie it in. One thing that did surprise me was that May goes to visit someone in prison. We find out is Richard Parker. I was not expecting that. Apparently, they were going to do a Richard Parker angle in the Andrew Garfield movies and have him alive, but they actually cut those scenes. Yeah. What did you make of Richard Parker being alive in this world, Marcus?
He's a throwaway character. He's a character. I mean, I didn't like how they retconned and try to push him front and center in the Andrew Garfield movies. They felt superfluous to me, to be honest with you, especially with the way they led with the experiments, and then the underground lab, and that felt like it felt really superfluous. And so Richard Parker in this one, I have no feelings, because at the end of the day, he's a nothing character. He's a throwaway character, and the reason he was gone helped make Peter who he was by putting him with May and Ben Parker, and losing Ben, and all this other stuff. So we'll see where they take him, but I really don't get it. I've got no feelings, because it's currently a throwaway character for me. If it had been Ben in jail, that would have been interesting, but the fact that it's Daddy,
Right. How about you, Paul? Did you have any feelings about this?
Yeah, confusion.
Okay.
Because I don't remember them ever saying Peter's parents were dead.
He said his mom died, but he did not say his father died.
Okay. Right. Okay. So, because that left me wondering, okay, wait, does Peter know that his dad is in jail? Has May been lying to him the whole time?
I can spoil it if you really want to know.
No, I mean, you can't spoil it because you don't know. We don't know where they're going.
I do know. Oh,
Well, you know where they went with it in the comics.
No, I do know for this show because the
you do?
showrunner says expressly that Peter is well aware that his father is alive and he knows that he's in jail. So it's not it's not a secret. That is not the secret.
Okay, then I'm not confused anymore.
They have to make it interesting as to why he's in there.
Right.
I mean, if they turn this into a fucking Barry Allen knockoff where my dad killed my mum allegedly, but it wasn't my dad who killed him. It was a alternate level, alternate Spider-Man from another universe who's actually reverse Spider-Man. Bullshit. That'll take the show through.
So I feel similarly to Marcus about the characters. It might be hard to stick the landing, but the part I am happy about is that the guy that plays Richard Parker is Josh Keaton, who played Spider-Man in, I think, like the aughts and the 2010s in animation there. And he was actually in the Invincible cartoon as the Spider-Man pastiche they had called, I think it was like Agent Webb or Agent Spider, some stupid name. But yeah, he voiced him as well.
When are we going to get Neil Patrick Harris reprising his Ultimate Spider-Man from the MTV show from the 2000s?
Oh, God, I forgot about that.
Remember that in all its cel-shaded glory?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
I don't think he's coming back.
I think needing MPH, having MPH in there would be pretty fun. Or maybe he'll just wait for Spider-Verse or something.
I'm down.
I like MPH. He's good, man.
No, he's great. So Marcus addressed this. He really wants to see a Norman Osborn Venom, but this season 1 set up so many characters for future seasons. Obviously, you have potential Green Goblin, potential Doc Ock, but you also have Chameleon, Unicorn, Rhino, Venom, which could go in many different ways, Tombstone. Knowing that we're going to get at least 2 more seasons, Paul, what villains do you want to see be the focus of season 2?
I would like to see the Shocker come into it. Or
Paul
Electro.
loves the Shocker. Oh,
I mean, we haven't really had the Shocker. I don't think in any of the. I mean, like they sort of said like at one point in the Tom Holland one, like, all right, you're the Shocker now. But like,
yeah,
we didn't really.
They have the guy with the right name and the gauntlets.
Yeah.
Electro's real name was on that board at the end in the finale, so he was one of the names on that board. Max Dillon.
Right. I'd like to see Black Cat as well. I mean, it would be a little tricky because you can't really do the outfit, and when she's not done right, she comes across as like a low rent Catwoman. Well, that too, sometimes, depending on who's drawing her.
The romance that, let's face it, Black Cat and Spider-Man, I mean, they're off again, on again romance.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that unless, all of a sudden this new girl comes to school and she was bitten by a radioactive black cat.
Right.
So, yeah, that's true. She's kind of older. But maybe that's the thing. Maybe she's like an older woman.
Hot for teacher. She's their new English teacher or something.
Right.
Yeah,
but then they'll just get somebody really bad to do a terrible cover of the Van Halen song. So
yeah, that's going into territory Marvel, Disney will not touch.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still hoping for a live action Sydney Sweeney in the Black Cat costume. That would totally work for me.
I'm sure you can find an AI version online somewhere.
Yeah.
You're a bad man, Ray.
So we're all longtime readers of the comics. Are there any elements, any storylines from the comics or even the movies or cartoon shows?
Hang on. I didn't get a chance to really answer who I'd like to see. Obviously, I did mention.
You did mention Norman.
And I said the idea of Venom Goblin.
Okay. Who else would you like to see?
Yeah, I actually would like to see a version of Electro. Very funny, Carlos. Yeah, I'd love to see a new version of Electro and see how they handle that. Obviously, Paul's going to have his gig as Mole Man, but I think Mole Man they'll probably save more for Fantastic Four. He's one of those. But yeah, I think they've touched on so many here. I think Scorpion, Unicorn, those ones are relegated to by the by. They're not important. Yes, they're powerful, but I just don't think they're interesting. Sandman might be, might be pretty interesting, but I'm happy with the villain build-up that they've got. Is that when, we're going to get a Doc Ock, we're going to get a Tombstone. We know something's going to happen with the Osborn clan. Does Harry find a super serum or something? We know that, like I said, there is a Venom, and I think they don't have to really pack it. They did put a lot of different bad guys into this season that tied into the Doc Ock timeline, Doc Ock story, and it felt organic. It worked, and I'd hate to see them go down the Sam Raimi, avenue of, all right, we've got to. So for Spider-Man 2, we've got to have 2 bad guys, and for Spider-Man 3, we've got to have 3 bad guys.
Right.
We've got to, and it wasn't Sam Raimi's decision, to shoehorn all that crap in. But I hate to see them almost like, the Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield, where we see Rhino at the very beginning and we see him at the very end, and there's fuck all in between. Or we get, they touch on the Sinister Six, and then the third in the series is cancelled, and there's no Sinister Six movie.
Right.
I'd basically like them to not Sony it up.
Yeah.
I mean,
they tried.
Do we get a version of Mobius? I mean,
Sony really wanted to do a Sinister Six, but almost everything they did was mediocre or worse. So
it's more like a Sinister shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Venom, obviously people have their, Venom 1 wasn't too bad. Venom 2.
Yeah, but they got worse.
Yeah, Venom 3, I mean, if they'd have gone harder on Venom, it might have been a little more interesting. But yeah, keeping Sony out of the perspective would be great.
Yeah.
And stop them making things like Madam fucking Web.
And hey, I
Kraven the Hunter.
I went to see that in theaters. Kraven was one of the worst things I've ever. I think Morbius is worse.
Mobius is the absolute. Actually, Mobius and Madam Web are tied for the absolute worst. Kraven comes in just a little bit above that because of the performance of the lead actor, and then Venom comes, above that. But
yeah, but yeah,
the last dance was.
I give Madam Web and Kraven a little step above Morbius, only because for people that are attracted to men, you could look at Aaron Taylor Johnson's abs for an hour and a half, and people that are attracted to women, there are 3 beautiful women to look at in Madam Web. Never mind.
Yeah, so let me just say, as somebody who has undergone one of the side effects of my cancer treatment is that
you're attracted to Aaron Taylor Johnson now?
No, it's not that. It's just it does have an impact on one's libido.
Right.
Because again, the prostate has been irradiated, and I'm on these things that sort of like these pills that dampen my testosterone, because testosterone feeds prostate cancer. But it's interesting. I can appreciate somebody for being attractive, but there's no like the creepy old man that I probably would have been in a different timeline of Sydney Sweeney. And now it's like she's a pretty girl. Yeah, can she act? I don't know. But at the end of the day, I'm also old enough to be her dad, or possibly even her fucking granddad. And to me, that's started to really come into my thinking now. So you will not catch me making comments like that. And please don't think I'm attacking you. But it's
no. I mean, I can objectively say
my perspective now.
Sure, and I get that. But I mean, even I can I'm not attracted to men, but I can objectively say that Aaron Taylor Johnson has awesome abs, and I could see why women would want to look at him.
He is somebody that they claim he's been groomed by his wife, by Sam Taylor Johnson.
That's right. She directed him when he was 18.
He was younger, and they started dating when he was 18. I mean, look, and it's nothing worse than anything Johnny Depp has done, blah, 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 blah. But it's, like I said, I'm in a very interesting mental mindset due to the meds that I'm on. But yeah, Aaron Taylor Johnson, I thought he was pretty good in Kraven, but it's just, it was lacking. It was lacking something. But Madam Web was shit, no matter which way you cut it. It was like Charlie's Angels.
Right.
reboot.
I mean, that at least made me laugh, not because that's what they intended, but I thought
Yeah,
the
I just felt sorry for
unintentional.
everybody involved. I mean, nobody goes out to make a shitty movie like nobody goes out to make a shitty game.
Right.
But yeah, it just makes you sad for those involved.
So, Paul, take this question then. What comic book stories or movie stories would you like to see tackled in the second season?
I want to see the Clone Saga.
No,
I want to see the Dune Buggy. I want to see the time he became all emo.
I had the Dune Buggy Matchbox as a kid. I loved that car.
I don't know that there is a specific story. Like, what I want them to do is kind of take what they started and keep going with it. And I like what Marcus said about the whole thing of him and Tombstone coming to a head. You know, where their interpersonal relationship runs afoul of what, you know, their friendship. So yeah, I can't think of like a specific storyline from the comics that they need to ape in this. I mean, I like what they did where they pulled little bits and pieces. It's kind of what they do in the MCU anyway. You know, they sometimes they pull big pieces and sometimes they pull little pieces, and you know, it's you know, you don't have to like keep making the same story over and over again. You know, one of the complaints that our friend Ray Carcillo has had about the DC animated stuff of the last couple of years is all they keep doing is doing note for note recreations of comic books. And
Unless
it's like,
it's the Killing Joke, where they put a god awful prequel.
Yeah, that was
a bad idea. But like for the most part, like, but a lot of times they just kind of just basically just
adaptations.
Adaptations, and it's like I don't need to see that in a, you know, like I want to see something different. I want to see, like, you know, tell a different story, tell a unique story or a unique spin on the story. So.
See, I mean, I would want either or. I don't like when they try to like do a half-ass adaptation where it's kind of like the comic, but the original elements they add suck, which is why I love this series, because it's very much its own thing and it stands out and works so well on its own.
Right.
But for me, I don't think they do it in season 2. I think they do it in season 3, but someone has to kill Spider-Man's girlfriend. It just has to happen. That's part of his.
What happens if he doesn't have a girlfriend? What happens if he has a boyfriend?
Well, they could kill him too.
Well, but
someone has to go off the Brooklyn Bridge.
Right, but they could also kill Nico.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's right. I mean, the thing is, like, it's him. It's somebody close to him that he loves dying.
Right.
Donnie.
So it could be Nico. It could be
Harry.
It could be Aunt May. It could be Harry. You know, it doesn't. They don't have to introduce like.
They battle and Lonnie dies, falls off the Brooklyn Bridge. Maybe Peter's figured out a way to sort of like nullify the rock hard skin, and he sprays him with it, and it's Lonnie who goes off the side. And that would be a tragic ending to these, you know, to this friendship. In trying to save him, he kills him.
Yeah.
See, Nico, if she has her witchy powers by season 2, if she's a witchy woman, like who sings that song again? But she would just float if someone threw her off a bridge. Are you really looking up witchy woman?
Yes, I am looking up witchy
great
woman.
Song.
It's the Eagles.
I thought it was the Eagles.
So with regards to these, I'm with Paul. I mean, I like the way they touched on things from the MCU and from the Sony movies and from the comic books, and have just taken little nibbles and made them their own.
Yeah.
And woven them into a new tapestry for the universe. And long may that continue. I don't, as Paul said, I don't need them to go down the DC route. I don't need to see the Clone Saga retold for the 36th time. I don't want to see, you know, a version of Morbius or Ezekiel Stain. who the guy who
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
All that stuff, like
leave all that
Spider-Woman.
shit behind. They're already doing good work.
Yeah.
It isn't broke. It really isn't broke. It's working so well. It's such a great show. Don't fuck with the system. Give us the nibbles, the ingredients, mix them together, and give us a different cake to
Okay.
the one we've seen in the books.
But here's a question for you guys. Do you think they should incorporate Thanos and the Blip into this show?
No, I don't know what that adds to the show, if anything.
Thanos wasn't in that multiverse. I mean, it wasn't. I mean, Thanos only went like that, as far as we know, in the MCU canon universe. So, I mean, it could be a universe without Thanos, and I'd hate to see Thanos turn up, or the Ultron Vision with the Infinity Stones.
Right.
In fact, do what Loki did: make the Infinity Stones useless and put them in somebody's fucking drawer at the TVA.
Or instead of killing half the population, the Thanos in this world doubles the universe's resources. That would have made more sense.
And this is why Ray is not.
He could have
not
snapped
writing
that.
Spider-Man stories, but I'd hate to see Thanos in there. If Infinity War and Endgame did it well. He's dead. Don't bring him back. I don't want to see him in a cartoon form.
Or Thanos Venom. That could happen.
I mean, do we see? What characters, other characters from the MCU, do we see? Do they integrate the Fantastic Four and bring in Galactus, or do they save that for a Fantastic Four TV show? Or don't touch Galactus because Galactus is going to be in the Fantastic Four movie.
Yeah.
I like the way they've done it, and it felt original and fresh, which is so hard to do.
Yeah, agreed.
And it wasn't confusing like What If that was, because What If just climbed up its own arse and just died.
So, as I mentioned before, this is in phase 5. They already said that season 2 will be in phase 6. So who knows what the state of the multiverse will be at that point, or even if it'll change more. Who knows? But I am happy, like you guys said, with the way things are, and also very surprised with how it turned out, because originally this was supposed to be cast in the proper MCU. But then they decided they wanted more freedom and they made it its own thing. And we are blessed with this show.
It's the better for it. It's great.
Yeah. So let's wrap things up with this. Let's have a hypothetical. Say you're meeting someone, a friend of yours that's on the fence about the show. Give them your quick elevator pitch on why they should watch it. Marcus, take this one.
I know what I'm talking about. Fucking watch it.
Paul.
I know how much you like Spider-Man because of the tattoo on your back. I'm surprised you're not watching this. It's a very fresh take on the character, and it's not a kid's show. It's a kid's show in the way that Batman the Animated Series was a kid's show, or that the Clone Wars and Rebels were kids' shows. Yes, there's nothing in it that's offensive to little kids, but there's nothing that precludes you from an adult with a good spirit from enjoying the show.
So question, when you're telling her this, is she face down, ass up, and you can see her tattoo?
Oh, Ray, come on. Come on.
This is Paul's pillow talk.
Let's leave Paul's grandma.
Can we not? Yeah. Damn it, I was going to go there.
Well, apparently you have, if you know about Spider-Man tattoo. I think Paul should just go with my thing. Paul knows what he's talking about. Just fucking watch it.
Yeah, I will say this is the best Marvel animated series, at least in the last 20 years, possibly ever.
I think it's up there with X-Men, the X-Men animated series. I think, but it's got me thinking with regards. I know we've got zombies coming, but I got a hankering for a Deadpool.
Okay.
A Deadpool, grown-up cartoon show.
Well, they were gonna do one, but it fell apart for some reason.
I
don't remember why.
I also want to
Was it
see a
because
new
of
Deadpool
Justin
game with
Baldoni?
Ryan Reynolds, so.
No, it has nothing to do with Justin Baldoni.
I wish I knew nothing about that situation. Like I know far more than I care to. God damn it. So with that
Movie
thought,
was awful.
that will wrap it up on our review and discussion of your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Please share your thoughts on the series in the comments section. Don't forget to like, subscribe. You can find links to Paul's website and Marcus's Blue Sky in the video descriptions on Facebook and YouTube. Paul and I will be back next week where we're going to discuss the movie Mickey 17, where Edward Cullen gives up his vampire powers to be able to clone himself or something like that. And we're going to follow that up with reviews of Invincible season 5, 4,
8, 27.
Season 3, you're right. And then the week after that, we'll be doing Harley Quinn season 5. So thanks for watching RPad TV. We'll see you next time. Bye, guys.